And a very warm welcome to all of you. It's a pleasure to host you in Security Field Day. As Tom said, we've been part of the Field Day family for the last 10 years, probably, however long it's been going on. Yeah, since the beginning. So why Security Field Day? This is one of the key questions. In Aruba, I'll tell you guys a little story. When I started the company back in 2002, Wi-Fi was still not integrated into the laptops. You had to go plug in PCMCI cards to get Wi-Fi. And I talked to customers. The primary objection that I got was Wi-Fi is not secure, and so we're not going to do it. And in fact, help me use Wi-Fi to kill Wi-Fi. What I mean by that is people would be worried about rogue access points, employees bringing in their own devices, plugging into the wired network, creating their own airwaves, and getting that home experience of Wi-Fi into the corporate offices. And so the first few years of Wi-Fi, our business was about using Wi-Fi to kill rogue Wi-Fi out there. And as Wi-Fi became more mainstream, obviously, we enabled it in a secure manner. And security was at the heart of everything that we did within Aruba. And in fact, I often tell people that Aruba is a security company with a wireless front end. We have an architecture that fundamentally is based on zero trust. And what I mean by that is you have to go validate who's connecting, what is connecting, is it healthy, and then based on that, open the aperture into the network only as wide as it is necessary, and then watch everything that's actually happening in the infrastructure. That was the philosophy of connecting wireless into the enterprise. And for the longest time, it was, thank you, it was just employee devices. And so the main concern was get them connected securely, authentication, encryption, but also validate network health by checking if the device had any antivirus packages, personal firewalls, etc., and then allow the device onto the network. Things changed dramatically in the industry when people started to bring in their own iPads and iPhones, and BYOD became a thing, where now you needed to start to create policies around types of devices and types of users, and then figuring out what policy to enable these users to connect from. So given the state of security in the mobile space, what we started to see was the mobility overlay inside the enterprise was more secure than the underlay, which was a wired underlay. And the reason for that was we were applying a lot of these security best practices to get people connected onto the wireless, but the underlay was still open. You could plug in and your device would get an IP address because nobody is checking. And the security controls are typically at the internet edge, but not on the inside enterprise edge. And so you can, in fact, go to most enterprises, plug it in, and get an IP address and start to communicate on any given VLAN. That's still pretty, I would say, best practice implementation most enterprises use. And so what we are trying to do is, in the world of IoT and mobility, that's no longer an acceptable way to architect networks. And you need to start to figure out how to treat the internal perimeter as importantly from a security standpoint as you treat the external perimeter to the internet. And that's a fundamental thesis, which is why our theme is securing from the inside out. And the basic goal is to create a solution that incorporates this idea of mobility and IoT at the heart of the network, and ensuring that we validate everything that is connecting into the network and everyone that is connecting into the network, give them the right permissions when they connect, and watch what they do, not with an eye of just monitoring, but with an eye of, are we beginning to see deviations in best practice and deviations in behavior that signal a threat. And as we know, if a threat emerges, the idea is to then close the loop with the policy controls and be able to stop the threat before it actually spreads throughout the enterprise. So think of it, the analogy that I give people is think of it as a great big firewall for the inside of your network, except the firewall is not a box. It's on every port and it's on every access point that you have inside the enterprise. And the firewall is really a control system that allows you to do all this that I talked about, right? So that's really what we're going to talk about. And in fact, we have a bunch of security experts inside the company that will talk to you about it. Some of them inventing core internet security architectures like Ike and so on. So Dan will address it, John Green and others will talk about all this as well. So our key theme for securing the network from the inside out, as I said again, is policy automation, which is knowing who's on, what's on, and what they're doing, and then monitoring to ensure that they're not doing anything bad and closing the loop between the two. And the one other differentiated posture we want to take in the market is not just applied to Aruba ports and Aruba access points, but do it in a multi-vendor manner. Because for customers, when we go and talk to customers, they're like, it sounds good as an architecture, but I have Palo Alto Networks firewall at the internet edge. I might have somebody else's switch. I might have Aruba access points or some other combination of a multi-vendor system. And so allowing a system like this to operate in a multi-vendor manner is another big priority for us, so that we are open, we allow policies to be communicated out to. A simple example is a Palo Alto Networks firewall sitting at the internet edge knows about the IP addresses from the inside out, but it doesn't necessarily know who is that IP address. ClearPass, which is our policy management platform, knows the mapping of the user and the IP. By communicating that mapping to a Palo Alto firewall, you can actually apply a zone-based firewall policy specific to a user or a user group. So integrations like this make it, and that's just an example. We have many more integrations to enable a multi-vendor ecosystem to actually come together in the enterprise. So that's it from me. Our goal, again, is to create a network that is secure from the inside out. So security is no longer an afterthought or you bring in by adding a firewall or an IDS system, but it's integral to the architecture of the system that you're building. And that's really the thesis and why we believe we have to be in the security conversation as much as we have to be in the mobility and networking conversations.